Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are waiting for a few more to get into the meeting and then we will get started. We're so glad you guys came to celebrate with us today. And I love seeing faces. Feel free to keep your video on. Yes, this is great. We like being able to see people. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with our soft introduction here while we wait for a few more people to get into the meeting. So my name is Ashley Belote. I am a member of the debut group Picture Book Playground. And today we are here to celebrate several of our members' books with our fall releases today. And this is our very first virtual book celebration. So we are really excited that you guys are here to share this with us today. Like I said, we're sharing a few of our favorite fun fall titles. And our guests today are authors Derek Wilder. Hi, Derek. We have Jessica Collection. Hi, Jessica. We have Julie Headland. Hello, Julie. And we have Jenna Waldman rounding us out at 4 authors. Hello, Jenna. And just so that you all know, we do have time for questions at the end. So if you would like to ask any of our authors about their new books or about the creative process through which they've created these narratives, please feel free to type them into the chat. And like I said, we'll get to those at the end. We'll get through as many as possible there towards the end. And I will also be posting some links where you can purchase the books that we talk about today. And we are also doing a giveaway times 4, because each of our authors are giving away a copy of their book today, including Julie, who just got her books yesterday. Yay! So we are super excited that she's going to get to be able to give away a copy of her own book now. So we will, yes, there it is. Oh, so we will do that towards the end. We'll do 2 right before questions and then 2 more right after our Q&A. So without further ado, I am going to go ahead and get started with our first author, who is Derek. And if you all don't mind just muting your mic so we don't detract from any of our speakers at any time, that would be awesome. But please feel free to keep your videos on so that we can see your smiling faces. All right, so Derek Wilder is an author and educator who lives with his daughter in Fort Mill, South Carolina, where they share their home with Coda, a Siberian Husky, Sammy, a ball python, and stacks of books. As an educator, he runs Fit Lit Kids, a child development organization that includes Playball, a sports and creative movement program, and Reading Giraffe, a literacy initiative with the goal of using the wonder of picture books to create lifelong readers. Derek is represented by Jenna Pocious of Red Fox Literary, and his debut picture book, The Longest Let's Go Boy, comes out on October 26th from Chronicle Books. And that is the book that we are celebrating today. So I will show you the cover here. There it is. It is illustrated by Katia Chin. And here's the flap copy. Poignant, hopeful, and lovingly told, this dog's journey, told by the dog himself in his own unique words, proves that love abides beyond a lifetime, out of sight, but never far away. As the dog and his little girl go on their final walk together, he experiences the sights, smells, and wonders of this world one last time before peacefully passing on. But for such a good boy, oh yes, he is, and his forever friend, that doesn't mean it's the end. So welcome, Derek. I'm so glad we get to celebrate with you today.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we're going to jump into a few questions, and then Derek is going to share a little bit of the book's interior with us as well today. So first question, Derek, how did you initially get into writing?
I was writing when I was a little kid, actually. I would write when we'd go on vacation. When we go on trips, I would write little poems mostly. So I've always liked rhyme. And in high school, my counselor actually recommended that I study creative writing and poetry in college. So of course, I went on to study computer science and statistics and had a career as a technology consultant. And then I had a second career as working with kids. And then finally, decades later, got back to writing for children when I had my daughter. We spent a ton of time in bookstores and libraries, sitting on the floor, reading books. And I just fell in love with picture books and started remembering that I loved rhyme and started writing again.
Oh, that's so great. Again, it's from a personal place, and that kind of leads me into my next question. Can you tell us a little bit about the story behind this beautiful story?
Sure. I love nature first. So I write a lot of times out in the outside. So I have a nice area out back with a little fireplace and a wooded backyard. And I had two Siberian Huskies who would sit with me and write. And one day, one of them, who was about 14 at the time, got up and walked around the yard. And my impression was that he was saying goodbye to all the flora and the fauna around. And when I got up and I followed him, and I envisioned my daughter, who was very young at the time, walking with him instead of me. So I substituted her for me. And I pictured them on their last walk through the woods with him saying goodbye to everything and him understanding that it was going to be his last day here on earth. And from there, I wrote the first draft probably that day.
Wow. That's so amazing. This is such a great book. I'm going to go one more question and then we can take a peek inside the book. So since we will be seeing some of the illustrations, I want to ask you an illustration question. So did the images look like how you imagined them?
Yes, to a degree. You always have the images in your head when you're writing, right? And we were fortunate enough to get Katya. She was very busy at the time, so we actually had the book was released a little later so that we could get her, but it was definitely well worth the wait. The things I was most fascinated and curious about were how she was going to illustrate a dog passing. And she did that with such amazing flair, as I'm not sure that's been depicted, in a lot of different ways. So there's 3 spreads there that connect to each other, and each one is different. And the other sort of behind the scenes tidbit that she shared was she chose the color palettes accordingly. So prior to the dog passing, it's mostly the palettes that a dog can see. Afterwards, it's what humans can see. So she brightened it up once he passes over. So I thought that was an amazing tidbit. And it shows that illustrators who I love, although I can't illustrate myself a lick, spend just as much time on each of their brushstrokes as we do on every one of our words.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And it really shows, especially in this book. It is beautifully done. You're exactly right. Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah. So if you want to give us a sneak peek inside, and like I said, we will be doing a giveaway. So one of our lucky attendees will be virtually walking away with a free copy of the book on its way to them very soon.
All right.
And also, like I said, if you came in a little bit late, we will be doing questions at the end. So please feel free to type them into the chat and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation.
All right. Can everyone see? Ashley, can you see?
Almost. It says you're sharing your screen, but I do not see the image yet.
Yeah, it shows me on my end that I'm sharing.
Oh, there you go. Okay, now we can.
Now it just popped up. Participants can see your application. All
Yes.
right. So I'm going to go ahead and read the first 3 or 4 spreads and give you an idea of the story. And again, it starts out kind of similarly to my real life story that inspired it. The first thing you'll notice is it's told from the dog's point of view. So I created my own dog language to try to tell the story. And then Katya brought it to life. Mew Mew wakes me, rumble drumming my tummy. I stretch my old bones. Fireball floats across bright blue, playing hide and seek with puffers. Swirlies ruffle the fur on my upside down. And I am trying to go to the next page. That was working when we tested it.
That's okay. This just gives us more time to look at the illustrations like we just talked about.
Let me. Let's try this way.
Here we go.
Sniff, sniff. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Here comes Little, my forever friend. She gives me a happy face. I wiggle wag. We shake, and Little holds out a tasty treat, letting me know I'm a good dog. Oh, yes, I am. Little calls out, let's go, boy. Her paws crunch, crunch across diggy dirt, and waybacks fill my head. I am an all puppy again, run jumping and tail chasing, yip yapping constantly at branch jumpers, leg lifting endlessly on tall sticks. Standing under those same tall sticks now, Little looks tiny. I want to run jump to her, but I'm dog tired, so I must slow step. She waits, then we disappear into Big Wild. Ta-da. And that leads them into the forested portion of their journey where most of the book takes place.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing, Derek. And I did just put some links in the chat where you can purchase copies of this book, and also where how you can follow Derek on social media. And we do have time for one more question. And this kind of pertains to the illustrations as well, because I understand that this was a somewhat collaborative process, which is a little bit, strange for the publishing world. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that collaborative process.
Well, it was probably my favorite part of creating the book. The editor at Chronicle, Taylor Norman, is a big believer in having the author and illustrator work together throughout the process. So with each iteration, there were 3 of them of the illustrations, I was able to see the whole thing, give feedback to it, suggest changes to both the illustrations. Because we created that special language, the illustrations definitely had to mesh with the text or it wouldn't make sense. And at the same time, because Katya did such a beautiful job in some of these, I was able to take out some of my text, change a couple places and literally remove some because I realized her illustrations told the story better than what I could say. So I give a piece of advice to writers if you ever go to any SCBWI conference or any conference, always try, if you're an author only, always try to find an illustrator session and go sneak in, even if you're going to sit in the back, just to get their view of things, because it's so different and gives you such a great complete view of what the final product was, and hopefully gives you some insight in case you get the opportunity to have feedback I say it's sort of creating the dance between the text and the illustrations.
Yes, and this book is a fantastic example of that. All right, thank you so much for sharing with us today, Derek. We will now move on to our next author, Jessica. Hello, Jessica. Thank you for being with us today. All right, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jessica, and I'm going to pull up this image so that we can see her book while I'm talking about her. All right, Jessica is a teacher, homeschooling mom, and author of children's books. Her passion for nature, free play, and learning inspires all of her stories. Jessica is the debut author of Before We Stood Tall, From Small Seed to Mighty Tree, Kids Can Press 2021. Coming in 2022 is First Notes of Spring from Bloomsbury and Hiders, Seekers, Finders, Keepers from Kids Can Press. Jessica lives with her husband and 3 kids in the Central Valley of California, just a short drive away from majestic mountains, the world's tallest trees, and the deep blue ocean. Today, we are celebrating Jessica's new book, Before We Stood Tall, illustrated by Madeline Klopper. A little bit about this book. Discover the extraordinary life cycle of trees in reverse, from mature tree to young tree to sapling to sprout to seed. A lyrical narrative and lush art show budding arborists the majesty of the forest and the science of how trees communicate with one another through each stage of life. I love this book. Jessica is amazing. The illustrations are amazing. I'm so glad we get to talk about this and even see inside of it as well. So Jessica, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for doing this. It's so fun to celebrate together.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into a few questions before we see the interior. So why did you choose the backward structure for this story?
It kind of happened organically. I wasn't exactly expecting it to, but on January 1st of 2018, it was my first time participating in Story Storm. And I woke up with, I know this sounds really cheesy, but I dreamed about this and woke up with this idea. And the first line just kind of came. And from there, I was like, oh, it'd be kind of interesting if I followed it backwards. And I think part of that came from just my experiences as a little girl and living trees and climbing trees and visiting the giant sequoias that are near me. And those trees are like, some of them are 2,000 years old. And I think it's really interesting to stand in front of something so majestic that has centuries or thousands of years on Earth and imagining what it was like before. So I think just some of my early experiences as a child and just wondering about what were you like before just started that.
Oh, I love that. Again, it comes from such a personal place too, which always makes it more special. So did you set out to write a nonfiction story, or did that somewhat happen by accident?
It was definitely an accident. I actually, before I was writing this, I was writing a fiction story called Little Twig that I'm sure my critique partners are so glad they're never going to see again. It wasn't working. I did so many drafts of this little twig that wanted to be big. And it was kind of a cheesy story. But it was, I think one of the reasons why Before We Stood Tall came so organically and kind of quick was because I had spent all this time on this fiction version of this story about a little tree that wanted to grow up and do all the things the big tree was doing near him. And the big tree was hosting kids that were climbing in the branches and birds that were nesting and a tree house and all these things that he was like, oh, I want to be big and I want that to happen. And so at one point, probably, I don't know, the 30th draft or something that I was circulating around with my critique partners, one of my critique partners was like, do trees even talk? And I remember being like, well, like none of this stuff is real that they're doing. But that question did kind of start some curiosity in me. And later on, that same critique partner sent me a TED Talk video with Suzanne Simard, the scientist that discovered how trees communicate and cooperate. And watching that TED Talk, I felt like I had this like mental vision of myself with like all the drafts of Little Twig on a desk. And I was like, forget that. This is what I'm writing. And yeah, that's what happened.
I feel like this should be like hashtag life of an author. Like this is like the cycle of a tree, the cycle of an author writing a book.
That's true.
You have just displayed this for us. And I'm sure that makes a lot of people, yes, I'm sure that makes a lot of people feel better about their current situations with the draft as well. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And I still have stories like that. I have works in progress right now that are like couple cycles of years into like draft 70 that I'm sure my critique partners are like, this again?
That's why we love our critique partners so much.
Yeah.
And like you said, this book is going to inspire a lot of kids who will hopefully become arborists. You know, with everything going on with climate right now, it's super important to focus, and that's exactly what this book does. So I'd love to go ahead and take a look at the inside if you would like to start reading.
Sure. All right. I love this view, how it's like the trees looking down at the kids and the kids looking back up at the trees. And I just feel like that captures just this like cooperative relationship we have with nature. So I just have to say that because it's just really special. All right. I'll read the first couple of spreads here. Before we were mighty in the kingdom of trees, we gave back to our forest, sending our seeds on the wind and wisdom underground. Before our branchers sheltered many, we remembered the seasons by tracing the years, line by line. Before our trunks grew thick, our limbs stretched from the shadows, climbing with the giants who guided the way. Before we stood tall, and I'll end there. That's what became the title.
Perfect title. And we do have time for one more question, which I'm super excited to hear about. So are there activities that can accompany this book?
Yes, there are. I'm really excited about them. There's a reader's guide on my website. And as a teacher and homeschool mom, I realized kind of early on that there was going to be a lot of curriculum tie-ins. So I also worked with the fabulous Carrie Allen, and she put together a whole entire teacher's guide, and Kids Can is kind of adding some of Madeline Klopper's beautiful art, and that full teacher's guide with printables and everything is going to be available on my website. Probably, I think I'm getting it this week, so it'll probably be up very soon. So yeah, use it in your classrooms and with your homeschoolers.
Yes. Are you using them during your virtual school visits?
I will be once those printables are all the way, ready so that I can send the link to teachers and everything, but I'll be using it with my own students for sure as well too.
Exciting. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jessica. It was amazing to see inside of your beautiful book. Congratulations. And again, we will be giving away a copy of Before We Stood Tall right after the presentation. All right. You are welcome. Next up, we have Julie Headland. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen again so that we can see her and the cover of her book. Julie Headland is an award-winning children's book author and founder of the 12 by 12 Picture Book Writing Challenge. Julie is also the author of My Love for You is the Sun from 2014 and A Troop is a Group of Monkeys from 2012, both published by Little Bahalia Publishing. She speaks to children of all ages in school visits and is a regular speaker at industry events. Today, we are here to celebrate her new book, Over Bear, Under Where? A hilariously clever story of wordplay and unexpected friendship, perfect for fans of 7, 8, 9, and Eats, Shoots, and Leaves. Over and Under are two friends, and they're enjoying a day at the park. They go on the swings, over goes under, over goes over under, and the seesaw, over under is under over. They meet a hot dog who joins them for a hot dog, and then they spot a bear, unbearable. But is he really the overall scary creature they understand him to be? Under, over, under. I'm so excited, Julie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I realized not only did my books just arrive yesterday, like literally last night, but as a result, though, this is probably when I read the first few spreads, I think this is the first time I've ever shared them like from where I'm going to be reading like from the beginning of the book up to a point. And suddenly I'm feeling very emotional, like it's just it's getting close.
Yes, it's getting real. And we are just thrilled that we are here to see this with you and celebrate with you. I know it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, for all of us, right?
Yes, yes. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into some questions before we see some of the interior spreads. What do you hope readers will take away from the book?
That's a good one. I mean, first and foremost, I hope they find it funny, just because I feel like with the way the weight of the world has been the past, couple of years, especially, that humor is even more important, I think. And I hope that it brings, hits those funny bones and brings a little bit of joy. But I also hope that the deeper layers of inclusion and belonging and acceptance, that the humor makes it those messages that are deeper in the book more accessible, because there's a big kind of component here of judging somebody based on what they look like and what assumptions you might have about them. And how that can get in the way of friendship. So first a laugh, and then hopefully some good discussions about friendship and inclusion. And so.
Absolutely. Yes. Humor can help with a lot of tough topics like that. And this certainly does that extremely well.
Right.
So who is your favorite character?
See, that's really tough, because it's like asking who your favorite child is.
Yeah, I know.
But interestingly, and I didn't expect this, but you'll see when I read this that a dog shows up. And of course, I love dogs. But the dog ended up being really important to the overall message. And he's just goofy. And what I love about the dog is that he just kind of walks onto the scene, and he just gets swept up in this whole drama, like Over and Under were already friends and they're doing all this stuff. And the dog is just like, gets sucked in and goes along for the ride. And, but he's like both just kind of willing, to go with the flow, and then becomes kind of helpful. And so I don't know. And I love the way Michael Slack illustrated him. Initially, the dog wasn't even in the book. The dog got added later. And of course, Bear is the emotional heart really of the story, but I have a soft spot for the dog for sure.
We all need a friend like that too.
Yeah.
Someone who just goes with it and says, okay, right. I like it.
I'm game, whatever you want to do,
Yes. So what was your reaction upon seeing the illustrations for the first time? I love
Oh,
hearing about this.
Goodness. I mean, honestly, you're looking at the cover right now, and I squealed. I literally squealed when I saw it, because how about that placement of underwear right on the bear's bottom? I mean, I couldn't even imagine a way to amplify the humor of the book any more than that. And it was all Michael's idea to make over a bird and under a mole. So, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, of course, it's so brilliant. But so I really left all of that up to the illustrator in terms of character design. And I think to use, a well-worn cliche pun, he really knocked it out of the park.
Oh yeah.
The playground in this case. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, opens up a great discussion for how an illustrator and an author really both bring a lot to the book, because you didn't have an art note that said what the animals were supposed to be. You left that open.
I didn't even say they had to be animals.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have been humans with t-shirts on. They could have been anthropomorphized words. I didn't have any idea.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That makes it so special. So now that we've heard a little bit about it and we've kind of got a teaser there with the cover, let's go ahead and jump into the interior so we can take a little peek inside.
I will be happy to do that. Okay, so here we go. Ooh, that was fast. Okay, over bear, underwear. Hi, over. Hi, under. Over is over, under. Under is over, over. Under is under, over. Over is under, under. Try to say that 10 times fast.
No, thank you.
Push over. Push over. Under is over, over. Under, stand. Over is over, under. I couldn't see it because the picture, our pictures are there. Over, eat. Under, cook. Over, done. Hey, a hot dog, dog. Hot dog, dog. Over, bear. Under, where? Over, there. Dog, gone. Over, run. Under, go. And that's where I'm gonna leave it there.
So that's a great teaser.
Catalyst there.
I do want to ask you one more question before we move on. So who would you rather be, over or under?
I mean, that's a really good question. And, a lot of people, I guess I would have to go, for sure, I would have to go with over, but I don't think it's for the reason people would think, which is being able to fly and, all that. It's really because I'm claustrophobic. And while I know moles are very skilled at digging around and getting their elaborate home environment set up and everything, I don't really think I could handle living underground. So that's my main reason.
Fair enough.
Plus, I think over is more, over gets under to do all the work for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Also very true. Yes. Priorities.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Julie. And you do see that she does have her real books displayed behind her, which is so exciting. So we're glad that those arrived just in time for our event.
That's right.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Jenna Waldman, who I'm going to share my screen again so that we can see her book. And Julie's is over. Next up is Jenna. All right. Jenna has always loved creating for children, from her playful greeting cards, her work as a toy designer, to writing stories and poetry. Jenna is the author of 2 picture books, Larry's Latkes, which we are celebrating today, as well as Sharkbot Shalom, both from Apples and Honey Press from fall 2021. She lives with her husband, their 2 boys, and 3 felines in Northern California, where there is always an experiment bubbling, fort construction underway, or cats lounging in boxes. So, like I said, today we are here to celebrate this new book, Larry's Latkes. So welcome, Jenna. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. I'm still cracking up over Julie's book. Thank you, Ashley. It's awesome to celebrate with everyone.
Oh, good, good. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the book, and then we're going to jump into some questions. So everyone knows that Big Larry makes the best latkes in town. This year, he is throwing a Hanukkah party for all his friends, and the latkes need to be extra special. So he goes on a quest to find some brand new flavors. But peaches are a soggy mess, and turnips are a flop. Big Larry's kitchen is a latke disaster. Good thing he has some help from his friends. Jenna Waldman brings her joyful rhymes and a friendly alligator to Hanukkah, helped by a sweet menagerie of characters created by Ben Whitehouse, who is the illustrator of this. So speaking of the illustrations, Jenna, I would love to know if these illustrations look like how you imagined they would.
Well, when I first met Larry, I actually have a picture of a very early, I think it was the first illustration I saw from Ben of Larry, right on the wall. And I thought that he had come up with some kind of like magical way to see inside my head, because it was so much like what I was like thinking Larry would be like. It was just amazing. So I'm just so thrilled at what he ended up being. He's a little different from this, but yeah, I definitely have a connection to him. And originally, when I first wrote the earlier drafts, it was a gator-centric world. But the editor thought maybe we would add some other, like the menagerie that you mentioned. So that was all just a thrill, a surprise to see what Ben was able to create with the other creatures.
I love it. And see, there again, you've got this great like marriage of the author's input and the illustrator input, and you get such a great product after. So I'd love to hear a little bit about the story behind the story and where the initial idea for this book came from.
So I have to give a huge thank you to Susanna Hill for her amazing contest, because Larry's Latkes was originally an entry in her 2018 holiday contest. The theme was Holiday Heroes, and I think I was not going to enter, but then some CPs were encouraging me to, and I thought, okay, I'll try to come up with something. And I have this image of when I was like folding laundry and trying to brainstorm what I could possibly do for a story. And I was thinking taters, but potatoes, latkes, and tater and gator rhymed. So it just turned into, I don't know where the character Big Larry came from, but the original opening was Big Larry ran a latke shop for tater-loving gators. And it just went on from there. So yeah, so originally gator-centric, but yeah, the evolution brought all the other animals in. Oh, and also the farmers market. We love bringing our kids to the farmers market. And I think maybe around the time that I wrote this, or just it was inspired by this experience, my older son was super, super picky. And we went to the farmers market, and I set us off on a mission of doing a rainbow hunt, a rainbow produce hunt, to try to help him feel involved in picking his food and be excited. So I kind of had that in mind writing this book too, like getting kids excited about what's available out there.
Great.
Yeah.
There's so many tie-ins. I love it. This business is so much fun. This is just fun. So we already heard a little bit about revisions and what that can, come with from Jessica. So I'm curious if you found that writing the first draft was more difficult, or if the revisions were more difficult.
I definitely think that the revisions were more difficult. Again, when I wrote this for the contest, there's a deadline, which we all know, all the writers know, was amazing. because it actually gets you doing your writing. So there was the deadline and there's restrictions for the words. So it was kind of easier to get it out. And I wasn't writing it, I was writing it more for me, for fun. But then once I decided to pursue submitting it for publication, it just opened up a whole other, like, can of worms of things I had to think about. And then once I had an R&R from Apples and Honey, they didn't like originally in the story, there was a gator tater famine, which is why Big Larry needed to find an alternative recipe because there were no potatoes available at all. And they were fearful that mentioning a famine, a potato famine, would be too dark for a good story. And yes, they are very smart. That's why they are the editors. And so I had to find a whole other reason why he had to come up with a new recipe. So it was a lot of revisions.
Yes. Yeah. And so speaking of the recipes, I'm curious if you tried the latke recipe from the back of the book.
I did. My kitchen looked a lot like Larry's food truck. I went out and I bought all of the produce and the camembert, which I had to have a fancy cheese stall at the farmer's market. So I think I did 5 different recipes, and until I came up with the final one, and I sent it to my editor, who also tried it. And there were so many other things I wanted to include in their recipe. So there's also a rainbow salsa that is paired with the latkes, so that I could include more of the colors and more of the produce in the recipe.
Well, that's good to know that they worked. So if you try those at home, no Pinterest fails here today. No.
No promises. I don't want to get any emails.
It's not Jenna's fault if it doesn't work. All right, so let's take a look at the inside here. I'm super excited that we can share a sneak peek. So if you'd like to read, I will turn the pages for you.
Sure. Let me just get into character.
Oh, good. Oh, I love props. Oh my goodness, I love it.
All right.
Oh my gosh. Like I said, this business is like the greatest thing.
Big Larry has a lucky truck he brings out once a year. The customers wait round the block when Hanukkah is near. They chitter chatter happily, a lively laughing line, then crunch up every crispy crumb. Your luckies are divine.
There's so much to look at here too.
For many years, Big Larry flipped his pancakes with a mission. I've always kept my luckies true to family tradition. His Granny Gator's recipe hangs high inside his truck. It fills his heart with memories and always brings him luck. But years of just potatoes makes him wonder, is there more? The world is full of flavors I have never tried before. His party starts at 5 o'clock and he wants something new. A special party recipe the same old spuds won't do. And I just wanted to show this spread, which is the beginning of his adventures into the farmer's market to buy and discover and try all the new flavors.
This is great. I think oh my gosh. Okay, you go ahead, then I'll tell you what I was gonna say.
Yeah, the hedgehog.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
Yes. Yeah, Ben is amazing. The sweet little hedgehog with the ice cream that fell. Oh, and the ants with the strawberries. It was just all of these things were all of his creation, and I love it.
Oh, this is just great. This is going to be amazing too for rereadability, because you can see the kids will want to go back and kind of search through these images again and again to find these little details. So even like the ants carrying away the strawberries, like that is so cute.
Oh, I still find new things when I look.
That's the mark of a good illustrator. That's great. All right. Well, that is all that we have prepared for you all today. So thank you for joining us. And we are now going to open it up for some questions and do our giveaway. So we're going to start first with the giveaway, which I'm going to try to coordinate here. Okay, so I got my random number generator. And all right, so let's see. So the first one that we are giving away, so I'll tell you guys before we let everyone into the waiting room, there were 4 people waiting in there and we're giving away 4 books. So if there were only going to be 4 people, everybody was going to be a winner. And I was planning to go, you get a book, you get a book, you get a book. Well, I can't do that now, but I wanted to do it then just so that I could still do that a little bit. Okay, so the first book that we are giving away is Derek's book, and the winner is Kelly C. Kelly C. Yay, Kelly. All right. The next book is Jessica's Before We Stood Tall. And if you're a winner, just we just have to get your mailing address. So if you just want to message your mailing address to the author that you want a book from, then they will mail it to you. If you all have any problems doing that, just unmute and let me know and we'll figure it out at the end. Okay. So the winner of Jessica's book, if I can get a virtual drum roll, that would be amazing. Just pretend like you are hearing a drum roll. Okay. Noreen Paulson, you are the winner. Yay, Noreen. Okay, this is fun. You get a book. You get a book. Okay. All right. Now we can open it up to a few questions. So again, if you all have any additional questions, you can still type them into the chat. So I have one here for Derek. Do you have any other projects on the horizon that you are excited about?
Okay, sure. I have a couple of other books that are coming out. The next one is out in the spring, actually. And it's called Does a Bulldozer Have a Butt? So it's kind of at the opposite end of the emotional spectrum from this dog. When we were speaking to Chronicles publishing both of them, when we initially sold Let's Go Boy to Chronicle, the key was that the editor was crying and looked around the room and saw that other editors were crying, and she knew that it was going to be a hit then. So our motto became, well, if we could, and within my critique partner group, the book was unofficially known as the Dead Dog Book. So the the motto I developed with my agent is like, well, if we could make them cry with Dead Dog, we can maybe make them laugh with butts. And sure enough, they ended up purchasing that, and that's a rhyme. So I went back to my roots of rhyming, and it's a rhyming book. And then a third one is coming out. It's a follow-up to that one called I Made Those Ants Some Underpants. So my next 2 after this dog book are going to be very, very, very different in style. And my personal favorite, I would rather have a book that makes you cry than laugh, but I do like writing poetry, and my rhymes tend to be silly and punny and humorous. So I'm not sure I'm ever going to be able to write a rhyming book that will make you cry, but I hope that the common element is that they invoke some emotion, no matter what that emotion would be. I think that's a key to at least the picture books that I love to read are the ones that strike some emotional chord.
Excellent. Love that. Thank you for sharing. And I got the same question for you, Jessica. What is next?
Thanks for asking. Next is First Notes of Spring, coming February 1st. So just a little more than 3 months. And then after that, next fall is Hiders, Seekers, Finders, Keepers. And First Notes of Spring, the one that's coming next, is my debut fiction. So that's one of the stories. Fiction, like traditional narrative arcs with characters, seem to be my my weakness. Like, it takes me a lot longer to figure it out. So that's one of the stories that, like, oh my gosh, I started in 2016 and sold it in 2019, and it's coming out in 2022. So it has a bit of a timeline, but it's really special and I'm excited about it.
Oh yeah, I think publishing in general has quite a lengthy timeline. So just board this train and wait. But it's nice to know that it's coming. That's exciting. Thank you, Jessica. I have a question for Julie. What was your favorite part of making your book?
Oh, wow. Um, you know, we talk a lot about, and we've talked today about humor versus sadness and, all the different emotions that books can evoke. But there's a very specific vulnerability to humor as well, because it's so subjective, right? And I mean, and so there's this fear of like, I think I'm funny, but no, but what if nobody else thinks I'm funny? Like, is this really funny or am I just weird? And don't answer that, please. So honestly, the most rewarding part for me was just when I got the offer and the match with my editor, Talia Benamy at Philomel Books, who just got it, and as you can probably tell, even from the read aloud, imagine that as just a manuscript. I
Mhm.
mean, you really have to read that thing several times before you're comprehending everything, the wordplay plus the narrative. And she just got it. And one of the first things that she wrote to me was how every time she read the manuscript, she just laughed, that it just cracked her up every single time. And that, to me, like finding the person to publish the book who just got it. And then that in turn made me feel seen, like she gets it, she gets me. And if somebody, there's just so much satisfaction in that, which isn't maybe part of the publishing process, but it was certainly my most favorite piece, was just that feeling of somebody really loves the story as much as
Mhm.
I do.
Oh yeah, it's extremely satisfying. And like you said, when someone gets it, it makes them passionate about it. So they're going to want it to be at its best as well. So that just makes the whole process more successful.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Julie. That's over. I'm not gonna stop. I have to keep doing it. I haven't found a proper entrance for under yet, but I will. A question for Jenna. You have two young kids at home. So what was their reaction upon seeing your book for the first time?
Um, they were very excited to see the actual tangible book. I think um, it was a good payoff for them to have had suffered through a very long time of hearing my revisions and testing it out on them. So perhaps it signified I was no longer going to torment them with testing out my revisions. But yeah, I they're always asking me how's it going? Are your books selling well? They want to know all the details. Um, so they're very enthusiastic office mates. Um,
That's
yeah.
exciting. We love to hear that. It's a good support system. Plus, I would imagine that they would make great salesmen for your book. Like, how cute.
Yes, actually, Ronan, my 9-year-old, he decided he was going to make a TikTok video for Larry's Latkes, and he dressed up all in green. He took a party hat and made the snout, and put on these wonderful googly glasses, and did a whole little thing, a little promo for the book. I haven't shared it because you can't really hear what he's saying through the party mask, but yeah, they're great to, these little fans that I live with. Yeah,
I
they're
love
also my
that.
inspiration.
That's excellent. Yes, it's a
Yeah.
family. They say it takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a village to sell some books. So it's nice when you can enact people to help you do that and to share it with kids. Because the point of this is to inspire kids and to give kids this window into a new world. So you're doing that so well. So I have a question for Derek. Where do you find and what are you most inspired by when writing?
Let me, all right, let me unmute myself here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Think I do. All right. Um, there's a couple of things that inspire me most. Probably nature is the first thing that comes to mind.
Mhm.
I'd mentioned that I write in the backyard. I do a lot of my thinking on our greenway in our town. We have a 2,100 acre greenway, and I do a lot of trail running. So whenever I have a plot knot or I'm not sure what to do, I'll try to take the books, print them out ahead of time, whichever story I want to work on, if it's a work in progress, sort of read it before I go on my run. And I don't take any headphones, anything. I sometimes don't even take a watch because I don't want to get in a race with myself or with time, and just take off running. And the first mile or so, or mile and a half it takes to get rid of all the anxieties and stresses of the day. And then the after that is when a lot of times the thoughts will come. So I joke with my accountant that I should be able to write off my running shoes, because really they did help me write these books, because without them, them and my critique partners, none of my books would have happened. The challenge I have, I've even missed my turn when I do a loop. I'll get lost on the trail because I'll forget to stop because I'm in the middle of thinking of something. But the challenge I then have is sort of like when you're in the shower or asleep and you have these great ideas, is I have to remember them by the time I get back to my car. So I immediately take my phone and start recording into the phone whatever ideas I had, and then I'll look at them later. So that's a key for me, is to get out in nature to relax, and then to try to remember the ideas that came to me when I was out there.
Oh, I love that. Yes. It's good to get out of your head sometimes too. Yes. So I have a question for all of you. So Derek, you can just stay on there and we'll start with you. So the question is, what is the best advice that you all have to new writers? So that might be good for someone in this room or somebody watching the replay. So Derek, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, I think mine, it's going to sound very cliche because you've heard it before, but for me, it's been true. It's write what you really are passionate about and love. I will try to give a little spin on it. One reason is because that you hear a lot is because that you're the only one who could tell your story. And in addition to that, to put in all the time and effort that it takes to create a story, you better love it, because otherwise you're going to probably get tired of it. Very few of us sit with an idea in a weekend and ta-da, there's the book. Most of mine, I'm going to say, are between 40 and 70, I think, revisions that I keep track of for my stories that have sold. And the ones that haven't sold, probably just as many as well. So in order to push through all of the time that it's going to take, and all of the probably frustration you're going to have along the way, and maybe the rejections, I think you have to love what you're doing. Otherwise, it's probably not worth it, to be honest, to do it. There's maybe better ways to spend your time than all the time and effort it's going to take, and all the heartache you're probably going to get along the way. But if you love it, there's nothing like it. So take those stories that you really love, because you're going to have that strength to see them through to the end.
Excellent. Yes. Jessica, what about you? What's your best advice for some writers?
I think for me, it goes back to trusting curiosity and trusting the process. In my experience, each project kind of has its own process. Sometimes things click in really easy. Sometimes things take years and certain events have to happen, or I work out something in another story before something makes sense in this story over here. And so I think, kind of that old teacher thing, when you're taking a test, keep your eyes on your own page. Also, like, keep your eyes on your own process. Like, everybody has a different process, and creativity expresses itself differently in all of us. And I think just finding what that is for each person individually is really important. And also, like, I've learned that, like, my creativity kind of flows in seasons. So there's times where I take a lot of breaks. And I think if somebody is beating themselves up about the butt in the chair, like a lot of people talk about the butt in the chair time, I know for myself, I had to, be okay with breaks too, and realize that sometimes my creativity wanted to express itself in my parenting or in my teaching or in my cooking or in other ways. And I just think it all belongs.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing, Jessica. Next up, Julie, what is your best advice for new writers?
I have to unmute myself. I'm gonna piggyback a little bit on what both Derek and Jessica said about, but as far as like the keeping your eye on your own paper, it also don't, I think a lot of people try to rush, because they want to get to the brass ring of publication. And when you do that, you lose a lot of the joy that's in the creation. And the thing that's tricky is that if you're not connected to the joy of the process, then that heart isn't going to land on the page, which means that you're less likely to then get the goal, because you've probably seen here today in all of these various forms, hearts on the page or something that's just very specific. And it can be really difficult to stay connected to that if you're really focused on the end game. Having said that, if you do want publication, you do have to do a certain amount of studying the craft, practicing, failing a lot, writing a lot of things that probably aren't going to go anywhere, but still trying to hold on to the magic of, even if it never goes anywhere, you've taken something out of the clear blue sky that didn't exist and you put it, now it exists. And that's, to me, miraculous, whether it gets published or not. And it changes you, and then you get better. And so I would say just try to stay connected to that which brings you joy in your writing and also in your life, so that you have that to feed you in those down times.
Yes, that is absolutely excellent advice. This is
Maureen,
certainly our passion.
Maureen just put in the comments, don't compare. It's so hard not to, but comparison is the fastest killer of joy.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes, not just in writing, in life in general.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And like you're saying, this is absolutely a passion-driven business. Jenna, what about you?
I would second everything that the three prior speakers shared. Absolutely. All of that. And I think maybe what I'll add, it's something I found personally in my experience with writing, kind of compared to what experience I've had in the past. When I was working as a toy designer, there were no children in the office. I had no kids. I didn't know anyone with kids. They didn't bring in kids to test out the toys. In retrospect, I think about how on earth could I have designed a toy if I didn't have children in my life and understand what children enjoy, what makes them laugh, makes them excited. I would have been a much better toy designer if I had had kids in my life. So what I say to writers for children is if it's possible, I know it's not possible for everyone, but find a way to connect with kids, whether if it's volunteering with kids at a school, or I know it's difficult these days, or if you have family with young children, spend some time with them, read your stories to them, read your poems to them, even if it's not yours, see what they're interested in. Immerse yourself in your audience, because when you don't know about your audience, it makes it more difficult to write to them.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a fantastic session. We are coming in at just under an hour. That one's for you, Julie. I used it. And like I said at the beginning, we are so glad that you all are here joining us today to celebrate these fun fall releases from Picture Book Playground. We will have the replay up on our Facebook page so that if you missed the beginning, you can catch it. But I want to thank all of our presenters. You guys are so amazing and inspirational. You're getting a lot of love in the chat from everyone agreeing with what you've been saying and saying congratulations. So your community is with you. So we're just happy we could share that with all of you today.
Do we have 2 more books?
Oh, yes, we do. We have 2 more books to give away. Okay. we've got, first up is Julie. It's not over yet. Yes, I did it again. Okay.
I love it.
Up. I'm trying, Julie. I'm trying. All right. So the winner of Julie's book. Oh, this is very fitting. It's Mindy from Picture Book Playground. Yay!
Hey, Mindy. You know how to reach me. Send me your address. I will send you a book.
Yay. All right. And last but not least, we are giving away a copy of Jenna's book. All right. And that winner is Susie Sawyer. Yay, Susie. So fun. It'd be great to just give away books all day long. All right. Now with that, we are going to say this is now over. But again, we just want to thank you all for joining us. This has been super fun. And congratulations to all of our authors.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Enjoy your weekends.